Good evening, everyone. It's another Tilt webinar, this time with Ellie Chettle Cully. We're absolutely delighted that she's with us. The focus is going to be on primary classroom. It's Thursday, the 15th of April, and we are in British summertime, 8 till 9 o'clock. I'm Helen Myers. I'm chair of the London branch of the Association for Language Learning, and we host these webinars in our Zoom room. The person who's really been putting this all together and doing all of the scouting is Joe. Over to you, Joe, please, to introduce yourself. You'll be introducing Ellie later, I know, but what about you?
Thanks, Helen. So it's lovely to be here, everybody. Thank you ever so much for coming along. We really appreciate it. What a perfect way of spending a Thursday evening. It's fantastic. So I'm an independent languages consultant working night and day to help language teachers from all over the world. And with that in mind, in the chat, I put some example sessions there, which can help with remote and hybrid teaching, whichever context we find ourselves in these very strange times at the moment. And if you would like any help at all, or you would like to invite me to do a webinar for you as a school, as a department, as a district, as a multi-academy trust, do let me know. I would absolutely love to help. I can also be contacted via Twitter as well. And it's my pleasure to be the official digital scout and ask people from literally all over the world to take part in these Tilt webinars. And we're in for a real treat tonight as well with Ellie. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you. I've said that this is the Association for Language Learning. If you're a member, please write in the chat, I am a member, and encourage others to join. It's a great association to belong to. We have a monthly magazine. But above all, we have a sense of community, really. And whatever your background, whatever sector you're in, whatever your personal ideas or preferences are to do with pedagogy, whatever it is, it's your home. Because the idea is that we're there to represent everybody and to be able to put people in touch with other people who've got the same sort of concerns or things that they want to share. So it's a great organisation to belong to. We've been keeping a list of all of the webinars. And in fact, I'm nearly up to date with getting up to a big document which has got all of the webinars we've ever had, and you'll be able to use a search function on it. I've done it up until about July, and I've now I've nearly got it up to date with now. So what have we got coming up? We've got on Thursday the 22nd, part 2. This is for Association of Language Learning members only. We're going to be doing some polling really to find out what people think about the proposals for the GCSE review. But if you're not a member, you'd still be able to see the video afterwards. We'll share things afterwards, but the idea is that this is where we're going to ask people to vote on various ideas. We've got a webinar coming up on Saturday week with Wes Fryer, so looking forward to that. And we've got another one coming up in May. So there are things lined up, but I know that there are others as well. And Joe, you said you might feel that you want to announce something tonight. You don't know, we'll wait and see whether he does announce. But if you look on our site, all of the webinars are listed there. I'm now going to pass over to Joe.
Fantastic. Okay, so we have got some other webinars in addition to the ones that have been mentioned, which is fantastic. So we have the amazing Danielle Warren on the 27th of May, if I remember correctly. We also then later on, let me just bring up my diary very quickly. Here we are. Right. We then have on the 24th of no, sorry, let's do this one first. On the on the 3rd of June, we have Orana and Cecilia Gora and Orana Speecher from Nottingham University. I saw them speak at the Association of University Language Centres recently, and they are amazing. They're going to do an extended version of their 10-minute presentation there over an hour for us. And then the week after that, we have Thomas Smith, who is the head of the Language Centre at Queen's University Belfast. Likewise, he also spoke at the AULC conference, and he's going to be doing a presentation for us on the 10th. On the 24th, we have Heidi Trude, who spoke to us before last year, and she's going to be doing a brand new presentation around breakout rooms and the use of Nearpod. And then in July, and this is a world exclusive, on the 15th of July, I've been able to, now you may not know this person's name, but I've been very excited about this. There's a lady in the States called Esther Park, who is an EAL teacher, And Esther is absolutely amazing and has become very, very famous in sort of the EdTech realm, I would say, very quickly. She's only been on the scene for quite a short period of time, but with things like Jamboard and animated GIFs, Bitmoji classrooms and things like that, I would say she must be one of the, if not the leading person in the whole world. So I'm really, really excited about the fact she has said yes. It took a while for us to work the dates out, but she said yes. So that's going to be on the 15th of July at 20.00 BST, which is great. And I think that's everything so far, but there's other people.
We are excited. We do share your excitement. It is like having a DJ, isn't it? Fresh on the scene,
but anyway,
not long on the scene.
That's right. But tonight, which is the most important thing, tonight we have the amazing Ellie Chettle Cully. And when I saw Ellie at Language World, she did a fantastic presentation around primary languages and special educational needs, which again is an area we've touched upon in previous Tilt webinars, but it's really lovely that Ellie's come along tonight, and she's going to be sharing ideas around her own context of using tech tools in a primary classroom. We haven't done much with primary. There was the University College London collaboration that I took part in recently when it was focused on primary, but for Tilt we haven't done as much with primary. So if you are a primary teacher, and I know there were some people that took part in the UCL event, and you would like to speak at a future Tilt webinar, do get in contact as well. But without further ado, I would like to hand over to Ellie, who I'm sure will introduce herself, and we're going to run her presentation is going to run for about 50 minutes to an hour or so. Do put questions in the chat with the queue in front, as Helen has said, and I will collect all the questions, and then we'll do all the questions at the end, unless there's something like you can't see the screen, or there's something that is really urgent. So thank you so much, Ellie, for offering to do this. Over to you. If you'd like to share your screen now, I will now turn my video off, and I'll be here the whole time collecting questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely. Well, thank you, everybody, and good evening. It's so lovely to be with you all here. A real pleasure to be here to discuss the ways in which we can take the technology and the skills that we've used successfully during our periods of remote teaching and learning and bring them into the primary classroom to enhance the language learning experience and progress of our pupils. To give you a very brief bit of background about myself, I'm a qualified primary school teacher, and I also have a degree in French and Hispanic studies. I've spent just over 10 years now working in various roles in lots of different schools within Leicester. A few years ago, I dropped down to part-time hours after having my two children, and since then I've been working as a specialist French teacher and the Languages and International Dimension lead at Hazel Community Primary School, which is an inner-city primary in Leicester, and I teach about 300 children across Key Stage 2 every week. So like many of you here, I'm sure the past 12 months have been a real learning curve for me as a teacher, as we've really got to grips with brand new ways of teaching and learning with very, very little training and very often at pretty short notice as well. During the first lockdown last year in 2020, my school's expectation of what the children were doing in terms of MFL was quite informal, and they were doing really some sort of quite simple tasks every week that they submitted via Class Dojo, and it was a very, very informal way of teaching. But in January 2021, when we went into our most recent period of lockdown, SLT were very, very keen, and I'm glad that they were, to have the children having live lessons or pre-recorded lessons in some cases for some classes. And it was then that that my teaching, should I say, had to change pretty drastically. Literally overnight. We all remember the announcement. Some of us have gone back to school, some of us haven't, and we knew that we were going to be entering a new period of remote teaching and learning. So a lot of the tools that I'm going to show you today are really things that I've got to grips with very, very recently. I don't claim at all to be an expert in any of these areas, but what I'm going to try and do is to show you how I'm using it and give you a bit of a personal account, and hopefully some of the things that I show you will be useful to you, basically. So when the UK's latest period of remote learning began in January, I spent several weeks on social media and also looking at some of these really fabulous Tilt webinars, watching what other really incredible practitioners were doing online, and feeling to an extent a little bit of pressure to try and get my lessons to measure up. And I think it's really important to say at this point, and it might sound a little bit counterintuitive given the forum that we're currently in, but it's very, very easy to get drawn into all these fabulous websites and tech tools, and I guess to become a little bit overwhelmed potentially by all of the options that are out there. And I think for those of us that are primary practitioners and may also potentially be teaching other subject areas as well, it can be a very, very, very overwhelming task. So we approach the area with a little bit of caution, I would say. But that said, one of the really fantastic and I think quite unexpected positives to come out of the months of remote teaching that we have just come out of is that, in my experience at least, and perhaps it's an experience shared by others here, it's that my practice has really been shaken up in a very positive way through the discovery of a fantastic array of really great websites and tools, which have been really helpful in helping me to recreate, to some extent at least, the engaging and the hands-on and interactive games that I try to make a part of my everyday practice. A lot of them are tools that I was already aware of, that I'd already looked at, but I'd never really had the time or, I suppose, the opportunity to really look at them in great detail. And so lockdown was a really great opportunity for that. So fast forward to the 8th of March, when we all finally returned to the classroom, and I think it was a relief for all of us, really. And one of the biggest questions that I started to ask myself was really, how was I going to use all of these new tools once I was back in school? Because I think we don't want to feel like we've spent a lot of time and energy upskilling ourselves and then see all of that work sort of fall by the wayside once we get back into a more of a normal, if such a thing exists anymore, into a more normal routine. And also I'd found that a lot of the things that I was doing in my live and pre-recorded lessons for the children were really, really popular. And I had some really fantastic feedback from pupils and from parents about the remote learning offer for MFL. And I was really keen to keep up the momentum and the motivation and capitalise on that once we got back into school and back into the classroom. Obviously, using technology within the primary classroom is not without its challenges, in my school at least. And perhaps some of you listening this evening, similar to me, don't work in a school that's overflowing with devices, because my school certainly isn't. And the struggles over the Chromebook timetable and the laptop trolley, the struggle is very real. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know. And I certainly feel that sometimes as primary practitioners, we're potentially a little bit disadvantaged in comparison with our secondary colleagues, who, and I know it's not all schools, but who may, for example, allow their children to use their own devices in class, and whose students might have potentially a slightly higher degree of digital literacy, because in primary we're teaching children that are quite young, lower key stage 2, maybe younger in some cases. So we don't always get that sort of quick fire and kind of quick access to tasks that teachers might be able to get with older children. And we also need to be selective about the tools that we use and make sure that they're simple enough for our learners to be able to access and get real meaningful learning from. And of course, what we don't want to be doing is just using technology for the sake of using technology. We really need it to be adding a dimension to the learning that we wouldn't otherwise get. So a lot of the tech tools that I'm going to show you today, you may already be very familiar with. What I would really like to do, as well as talking about them in a more general sense and perhaps showing some ideas of how to use them, is to spend a bit of time thinking about how these tools might best be utilised in a whole class primary setting, and also how they could be useful in terms of supporting or indeed challenging specific groups within the classroom to ensure challenge and stretch and progression for every single pupil that you have in the classroom. And as we go, and this is going to sound like a bit of a cop-out, it isn't, because there are just some amazing people out there. I'm going to try and signpost resources and blogs and other webinars as well for you, which can be really, really helpful, because they will be an opportunity for you to explore and hear from other people who are much more expert in particular tools than I am, and have some really amazing ideas for the ways that they could be used within the classroom. So let's get started. I'm going to begin with a tool, a site, should I say, that was one of my earliest lockdown discoveries, actually, and it's really been my go-to for very simple but quality activities ever since, and that is word walls. So hopefully it locks us straight in. Brilliant. So when you access word wall, if you haven't done so before, I'm not going to show you in too much detail, but there are plenty of different activities that you can create, some of which are free, some of which you have to pay for, and there are lots and lots of different types. So you've got very, very straightforward, simple things like spinners, which are really good to use for example, if you just want to practice very simple words and what have you, simple units of vocabulary. And there are also things, again, to practice spelling a little bit. So for example, here is a little rearranging the letters activity. Sorry, my connection seems to be a little bit slow. So we've obviously got the word in English, and then the children have to rearrange the letters. You'll notice it does a lot of dinging and flashing and ticking, and these are the sorts of things that they seem to really like, the sort of dinging and pinging sound they seem to find very, very motivating. And also things like sentence rearranging, which again is another really great thing to get them thinking a little bit about how they might need to rearrange a sentence, for example, in terms of adjective noun order and things of that sort. These are all really nice activities that I use during lockdown for individual activities. And what's really great about that, or what was great about that during lockdown, was of course that you would create a leaderboard, or it would create a leaderboard, which would tell you how the children got on with a particular task. And that's really helpful in terms, or was really helpful, should I say, in terms of teacher assessment. Obviously, you could still use these in this way and have children on individual devices, but I found that generally these kinds of activities work really, really well as starter activities to get the children thinking about vocabulary that they've already covered, and to at the end of lessons potentially also to check what children have learned. The games that I found particularly helpful since we've returned to school, particularly in terms of getting my head around where the children are at and doing some kind of assessment, are these ones that I've put up here. So as an example, these ones are sorting games, basically. So you can create, it's called group sort. You can create an activity with various different groups. In this case, I've used two groups, singular and plural. The children work on their whiteboards. They divide their board in half into singular and plural, and they have a go at arranging the vocabulary into the correct groups. And then at the end, they can come up to the front one at a time and move one of these into the correct box. And what I really like about these kinds of grouping activities is that it creates a really rich dialogue between the children, and it's really good for getting the children to explain their thinking. So why is it that I've put une orange in singular, for example, rather than in plural? And it's a really good way of getting to grips with whether the children really understand the concept that you've been covering or not. That was a very simple example, but you could also obviously use a more complicated example. Like this one. Again, it's a group sort with two boxes. I just realized I haven't checked that you can actually see this screen. Can everybody see this?
Yes, we can. We would have
Yeah.
told
Lovely,
you.
that's
Yeah,
fine,
all
great.
good.
I just realised there was silence, and then I thought maybe that's a good thing or maybe it's not. Okay, lovely. So again, we've got 2 categories to sort into, correct and incorrect. But this time we've got a much more complicated sentence structure, so the children can sort into correct and incorrect. First of all, as pairs on whiteboards, and then on the board together as a class. And again, it's a really good way to get the children explaining why it is that they've put them in particular places. Okay, why is it that they've chosen that particular category to sort that phrase or that sentence into? Another little activity that I've used on Wordwall really successfully, again, really nice starter or plenary activity, again, on the board, but children working on whiteboards together and discussing. This one is kind of a drag and drop activity, missing word activity. With my year 6, we were recently over lockdown working on the partitive article, and I knew quite a few of them had got the hang of it, but there was some that I just wasn't quite so sure about. So I set them this little task on one of the first lessons that we came back to, and they had to sort the partitive, they had to drop in the correct partitive article. And again, really, really good way to get the children explaining why they did certain things. So giving them options and allowing them to choose the correct option. So that's why I really, really like Wordwall. As I've said, only about 5 templates are available for free. There is a monthly charge after that, but there are lots of pre-made games which are shared by other teachers and available to everybody. And of course, one of the best things about this is that games that are created within Wordwall can actually be imported into other places like deck toys, for example, or embedded, should I say, within things like deck toys, which I'll show you a little bit later on, which is really, really great when it comes to revision and revising things that you've already done prior potentially to doing some sort of assessment. But it's very, very simple. There's no bells and whistles, but sometimes that's all we need in order to be able to work out what the children know and what they don't know. So that was one of my first kind of discoveries, and I spent a lot of time looking at Wordwall with the children. And learning apps was another really great tool that I found, a site that I found that was really, really helpful. Again, really simple to use, completely free, and you can create lots and lots of activities in this way, including things like pairs matching games, spelling games, all the things that you can do in Wordwall, for example. But one of the great things about learning apps is that you can actually add in audio. The things that I'm going to show you, the little activities that I've set here that I'm going to show you, essentially are fairly simple. They were really good for children doing these individually during lockdown. But again, these would be absolutely brilliant when put into a deck toys activity type thing. So here we've got an example of a matching pair activity. It's really nice because we've got examples of audio. So here, this is a weather one for year 4. The phrase is written in English and also the audio in French. Il pleut, and then the children match il pleut with the correct little translation in English. Okay, I'm not sure if everybody knows how to do this, but just very quickly, I'll show you how this is done. Sometimes it's nice to see what one actually looks like and then work backwards a little bit. So if I go into Edit App and add another element, nice and easy. I want to use text to speech in this case because I want the information to be spoken aloud. Il fait beau will do for now. Change the language from English to French. If you don't, it doesn't sound great. And then I'm going to put the text because I just wanted it is nice. The weather will do as a translation. And then I can save the app. And that, again, is a really, really nice way to practice the children's listening skills and worked really, really well during the lockdown period. You can do lots and lots of different listening activities in the same way. This clothes matching activity is another nice one. I think this one works really nicely when children are working on individual devices, simply because it it reads the information to them. So let's find an example. Un short bleu. Okay. Sometimes when children are working on pairs activities, so they're turning over cards physically, I find in the physical classroom when they're doing that, so they're playing a game of matching pairs game, for example, you can only work with one particular group at a time, really, in order to correct their pronunciation, etc. So this is really nice because it actually gives them, or it says to them, the phrase, and then they can repeat it back. So it's actually giving them a really good model of pronunciation which they can use. And another really nice activity, listening activity that I used with year 4 again, was to do with weather, this time matching on an image, and the children would click onto a particular city, and then they would listen to see if they could correctly identify which city was being spoken about. À Paris, il pleut, it's not going to be that one. À Bordeaux, il y a du vent, so it's not going to be that one. And they go all the way along, listening for the city so that they can correctly identify where that weather is happening. So those would, again, are worked really, really well during lockdown, but I think would work especially well as revision activities as part of your unit of work. But what I really want to have a look at on learning apps is the kinds of activities that you can create which help your children with their listening skills, and in particular how we can differentiate those kind of listening activities so that all of the children can access the listening at their level. So this is an example of a year 5 one, Les citrons ne sont pas rouges, which is a book that we were reading. And here I've created using Photospeak, it's called, isn't it? It's completely gone out of my head. Photospeak, that's Photospeak. I've used the Photospeak app to record myself talking to the children. Okay, les citrons ne sont pas rouges. And the children will be reading the text along, and they will fill in the gaps in the text with the correct adjective or the missing word, basically. It can be simplified. So this is quite complicated, isn't it? Writing in an actual word. So if you want to simplify and differentiate, you can create a copy of the app. So that means that you're creating another version, basically. Exactly the same, video is still there.
Ellie, can I, sorry for interrupting, yeah. But if we want to hear the sound, can you go up to the top toolbar and click, I think, more, and then share sound? Is that okay? Sorry,
you were right about that.
Yeah, don't worry, it's fine. I absolutely love this Bitmoji Photospeak activity. I remember you tweeting about it and me retweeting it. Brilliant.
Share computer sound.
That's it.
Right, with that.
Yeah, now when you press play, we'll be able to hear it.
Brilliant. Okay, parfait. Thank you. So again.
Les citrons ne sont pas rouges.
Okay, les citrons ne sont pas rouges. So again, I would fill it in. Okay. Now I want to make this a little bit simpler for some of my my children, because I know that they're going to struggle with adding in the plural adjective because that's not quite where they're at yet. So if I go into Edit App, then I can change the task type from write-in to select word from list. And that means that when the children go into that particular example, they will then be able to select a word from a list. So they're not going to have to write it in, they just have to select the correct word. So we've got two different modes of differentiation there. And because within that class, there's quite a wide range of abilities. I've also created for them another listening activity. So this is for sort of the bottom end of the class, if you will. And they're not quite on thinking about plurals yet. They're not quite ready for that yet. So they're just thinking about working in the singular. So again, I've recorded myself. So I've recorded myself twice doing two different texts.
Le citron n'est pas rose.
Okay, le citron n'est pas rose. So now they can either add in their own word, or in exactly the same way, I can create a copy of the app, edit the app, and change from writing in to select word from list. And again, that means that those children who are perhaps have SEND, for example, can access the words just here. And I would also provide them with a little physical laminated copy of the colours with a little visual of the colour next to it, so that when they're choosing their word from the list, they can refer to their particular sheet, their support sheet, if you will. So that way you can have the children on their devices at 4 different levels of listening, working on the listening at their particular level. So you assign them their particular, the link to their particular listening activity on Google Classroom or whatever it is that you use. And then the children can all access at their level the listening, which makes it much more inclusive than me standing at the front reading out a listening activity for a closed activity like this and them all accessing the same activity. So I think this is a really, really good way of differentiating listening activities for the children. And of course, they can assess themselves by clicking on the blue circle, which then will tell them what they've got right and what they need to correct, and they can go back and do their corrections that way. Another thing, again in learning apps is so rich, I think, with things to do, is a translation grid. So again, this a lot of the inspiration from this came to me from Esmeralda Salgado's Tilt webinar in January, I think, and this is one of the things that she showed there, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. So I've basically given some translations just here. Again, this is to do with what animals eat, because it's on our year six unit on animals. The children would have this on the board at the front, and they would choose which particular translation they want to do. So obviously you've got some French to English translations for 1 point, so that's not too tricky. You've then got the English to French translation for 2 points, going up in difficulty level up till 5 points, which is where the information is being extended basically with a conjunction, and the sentence is much longer. So then the children choose basically what do they feel confident doing. So do they just want to go for the 1 point ones, or do they want to challenge themselves with a 5 point? Set the timer for 10 minutes or whatever it is you think that they're going to need to do it. And then on whiteboards, and possibly in pairs to help them with the discussion element of it, they do some little translations on their boards. You can obviously go around and assess them as they're doing that. And then at the end, as you're going through, the children can come up, read out their translation, potentially write it if they're, in this case, it's not really, yes, it will actually, because there's going to be some plurals with S's on the end, so you might want them to jot it down so that you can check that they're getting the plurals correct. And then once they've got it correct, they can click off the grid, and underneath will be revealed, in this case, a little song which they can watch. It's the Circle of Life in French, because sometimes I find they like to see the French version of something that they already know. In order to get this hidden underneath, you just need to go to the background section, and you need to select a video, and you can just put in a YouTube link then to the particular song that you want the children to look at. And in this case, the reason for them doing this was because they could then listen to this particular song. As they're watching the video, they can pick out 4 or 5 animals in English that they want to use in their writing the next lesson, where they're going to be describing some animals, what they look like, what they eat, etc. And they will then go away, look at those, the names of those animals in French, and then start to do some description about them. But it's a nice, meaningful way to bring in a little clip that actually leads them on to the next phase of their learning. So that is, I think, everything that I have to say about learning apps. There's lots more there, but I'm sure that you can explore that if you haven't done so already. So I'm going to very briefly mention Genially. The only reason it's going to be quite brief is mostly because of the absolutely amazing webinar that I watched yesterday with Marie-Ellie, who I believe is here this evening. So if you want to find out exactly how to use Genially in the most amazing way possible, then you need to go onto YouTube and go to her webinar. But what I'm going to do is just show a couple of things that I've used Genially for, that I found to be really, really helpful in my particular setting. And then if you want to look into kind of the gamification and all the amazing templates, I've got a couple of them here that Marie has very kindly shared on the Languages in Primary Schools Facebook group and the Teaching with Genially group, and on Twitter, then that's where you need to go. So one thing that I used the Genially for during lockdown was in order to create some virtual classrooms for my children. So essentially during lessons I had lots and lots of links, I had lots and lots of different places for children to go to. So instead of posting 100 different links to different things in Google Classroom, I just put it all together in one place in a virtual classroom, and then I would say to the children during the lesson, who would have access obviously to the link to this virtual classroom, right, we're going to do the numbers song, can you click onto the picture of the numbers? And then they would of course click on, and then it would take them to their song that they were going to work on, or whatever it was. So the virtual classroom was a really, really helpful tool during lockdown. And in fact, the great thing about Genially is that you can embed it into other websites. So I'm going to now start using this on our school website as a virtual classroom, which the children can access, that has lots and lots of things relating to that half term's learning that they're doing, or that term's learning. And that way they'll be able to access lots of songs and activities, little games and things that I've just shown, links to things in WordWall and learning apps that they can then do at home. And it's a good way to get them thinking about their French outside of school, and also engaging parents, hopefully in helping them with some of those tasks as well. So Genially is definitely going to be the way forward for my virtual classrooms on our school website. I've also used it in the last few weeks, really, just as a really fantastic way of curating really all of my lesson resources really for particular lessons that I'm doing in class. And what I really love about Genially is the way that you sort of have everything all together in one place. So you're not having to click on links here and there, and you can embed things within the slide, within the slides themselves, which I think is really, really good. So this is a presentation that I'm doing at the moment for Senegal, a unit on Senegal with my Year 6 class, and they have been looking at what Senegal looks like. And what I really love is that you can embed things like video straight into the slide like this. So you can just click straight on it, and it takes you straight to the clip that you want to show the children, which I think is really great. It avoids you having lots of different links and lots of different tabs open. And also what I've managed to create, and this is a really nice way again of curating content for the children, because I think often when we're in MFL lessons, we have such a limited period of time to actually get information to the children. So this week, the children had a virtual tour of Dakar. So they had access to this Genially on their devices in pairs, and they could basically explore Dakar with the help of some prompt questions on a sheet from myself, looking at different pictures, looking at videos, and just gathering as much information as they could about Dakar just by clicking on the different interactive elements of the map. So that was a really nice way, as I say, of gathering together lots and lots of information for the children in one place, but in a way that's really interesting to them, so that they just have to click and explore at their own pace, and with guidance from you and with the help of a partner. So that's all I'm going to mention with regards to Genially, but definitely go and check out the webinars that have already been recorded that can give you more information about how to create games and all these wonderful things, interactive things that the children can do in class. Flippity, I'm sure lots of people are familiar with Flippity, but I'm just very quickly going to go over the tools that I really love in Flippity and how I'm using them now within the classroom. Flippity, it can look a little bit complicated to start with, but all of the elements have a little instruction text that go with them. So if you're unsure about how to use them, then you can just click on the instructions and that will help you. There's 3 things that I've been using a lot in the classroom, well, that I used a lot during lockdown and that I'm using a lot now that I'm back in the classroom. One of them is these flashcards. Now, I find with my SEND children, and this is something that I think I mentioned in my presentation that I gave on SEND at Language World, is that quite often it's nice to give them a little bit of a head start on a lesson, especially in terms of vocabulary. So if you know that you're going to be introducing quite a lot of new vocabulary to a class, and SEND children might find it a little bit difficult to assimilate that, you can actually give them a head start by allowing them to access some flashcards in advance of the lesson. So at the moment, I'm working on Ours Bram with my year 3. They will, I've discussed with their teacher the opportunity for them to use the class computers to get up to speed with the vocabulary that they need for the first few lessons, which is going to be the animal names. So I've created my my spreadsheet in this way, and I've gone to File and Publish to the web, which is what I need to do in order to be able to get these flashcards up. I get the link, and then I'm able to view my my flashcards, which I've created with images. Okay, they've got to be JPEG images. So here the children can listen.
Un ours.
Un ours, and then they have their picture.
Un cheval.
Un cheval. Again, they've got a picture. So the children can listen to the
Une
vocabulary
grenouille.
and check what it means, and then practice it a few different times. There are ways to practice using basically typing in the name of the animal, but because we're using a multimedia, because we're using pictures, we can't do that this time. But there's then lots and lots of different games that they can play, matching games, for example, that they can play to practice the vocabulary. And if you click on the More tab, there's loads and loads of different things that they can do, that they can choose from, that they can practice this new vocabulary with. So they'll have an opportunity, maybe a couple of times before the lesson actually happens, to access the vocabulary, and it gives them, as I said, a little bit of a head start and a confidence boost ahead of the lesson. So that's a really good way of using Flippity for SEND children, in my experience. Again, Flippity this time, we're looking at manipulatives. Now, manipulatives, again, I mentioned in my presentation at Language World, I think manipulatives are really, really useful for children in terms of physically being able to construct sentences. And what I used to do pre-COVID was I did lots and lots of different cards, and I laminated them, and then the children sorted them and put them in and rearranged them to create sentences. And what I really love about the Flippity manipulatives is you can basically do the same thing, but without having to spend lots of time doing laminating. So it basically cuts your workload more than in half. And it's a really good way to get the children thinking about how to construct their sentences. So here I've put all of my vocabulary down the left-hand side, and then I've color-coded all of the cards according to their function within the sentence. Okay, so we've got, for example, our nouns are in green, for example. Our verbs are in red. And then again, having published to the web, I can now get the link and very easily get my manipulatives up here. And then the children can now create their own sentences using the manipulatives. La chenille mange une pomme, par exemple. Now, for some children, that's going to be enough. That's enough vocabulary. But for others, you might want to add in more words. You might want to add in conjunctions, for example, so they can extend their sentences. You might want to add in adjectives so that they can extend their sentences. But again, you can decide for the children whether you give them all of the words, which might be suitable in some cases, or whether you assign different tasks to different children. Generally, I tend to like to keep tasks very open-ended, so that, let's say, SEND children, as an example, have access to the learning that everybody's doing as well. So we're not just giving them a set simple task, but sometimes that might be appropriate depending on the children. Also, we have a really great tool, which is the Randomizer. I've created here essentially a speaking frame for the children, or writing frame for the children. And at the top, I've also added in some numbers, which will make sense in a minute once I actually share the randomizer. Sorry, this seems to, there we go. Okay, so again, we get the link. I publish to the web, I get the link, and I create the randomizer. And I can spin the randomizer now, and it will give me a sentence in French. Now, the numbers have appeared at the top, and these are really, really helpful because some children may just want to do section 1. So they might just want to do j'adore l'ananas, par exemple. They might want to move on to section 2, so they might want to add in an adjective, for example, or move on to section 3 by adding in a conjunction and more information, or section 4 adding in another adjective at the end. Unfortunately, you can't color code these bars, which is what I would normally do if I was using a physical speaking or writing frame. But I've just put the numbers up there to help to organize them. And then they can read through this and they can decide, well, j'adore l'ananas vert et j'adore la goyave orange. Does that make sense? Well, we know that l'ananas is not vert. So what are we going to do? What will we have to change in that sentence in order to make it make sense? So they'll do a translation to start off with, and then they'll decide whether they're happy with that sentence, whether they think that sentence makes sense in terms of the colors, or whether it doesn't and how they can change it. The really, really nice thing about the randomizer is if you copy and paste the address into the URL, should I say, into an iframe generator, you can generate an iframe, copy it, and then you can put it into, for example, a Genially presentation by going to Insert, Others, pasting just here, and then you've got your randomizer not just in a separate tab, but you actually have it there in your slides that you can use. So that is another really helpful thing, to be able to keep it all in one place so that you can use it in Genially, for example. Very quickly, another tool that I found, which is really, really good. Again, just thinking a little bit with my SEND head on, if you like. It's a really lovely little, very simple tool, basically, classroom screen. It's got lots of tools at the bottom, which are really good for language teaching. So, for example, we've got dice. So if you want to do a little maths activity or something like that to start off, we've got dice there. But what I really like, we've got random name picker, for example, so you can put the children's names in and call on them at random. But what I really, really like is the sound level monitor here, which you can have on. Obviously, I'm talking very loudly according to this sound monitor, and it will tell the children what their level of noise is at that moment in time, and whether they need to keep that noise down for those children who might struggle with that sort of sensory overload of a very, very loud classroom. The only thing that is a little bit frustrating about it is it has to be like this on the screen like this. You can't import it anywhere else. So if children are doing something on the screen at the same time, you wouldn't be able to use this. But if they're working on something on their desk, this is a really nice tool to use. And I use that a lot during lockdown lessons on the board to keep lots of different activities together. Blooket, this is a really nice one. Again, I think a lot of people are familiar with this one. I think what I really like about Blooket, what the children really like about Blooket, is the really competitive element of it. But what I've started using it for in the class, and what I used it for in the few weeks leading up to Easter actually, is to help the children a little bit with their revision of things that they'd covered during lockdown that they might have forgotten. So, for example, I've got here a couple of examples which were to do with weather. So if we go in quickly, we can have a look at the sort of questions. So we've got translation from French to English and also English to French. These are all sentences that require the children to understand something about pronouns and, of course, the weather. But for all children, that's not going to work because they might not quite be at that level yet. So we might create something separate for them. Again, it's still on the theme of weather, but this time it's simply the weather phrases on their own and doing translation underneath. And what I can do then on my screen is, within the classroom itself, I can actually have two Blookets going on at the same time, because I can let me just move this out of the way. Sorry, this is my way. So I can now set this as a task. I don't want to, so I save set, and now I can set this as as something I want to host it. So I can host this one just here. I can have this one open on one side of the screen, and if it's going to work, it's very, very slow. I can have this on one side of the screen. Gold Quest was the favorite one that they really, really liked. So if I just turn, hopefully we don't hear the sound, but we can host just here. And if I want to do another one,
Ellie, if you click on the speaker, we'll be able to hear it more easily.
Sorry, I seem to want to play ball today. Anyway, yes, I can have two screens open, and I can host my other Blookit just here on the other side. So I can have two separate games. So I can say to some children, you're going to do the Blookit on the right, and you guys are going to do the Blookit on the left. They don't need to know which one is which. They've got two different IDs just here, and then they can access the game at their particular level. And that's a really nice way of getting the children to revise things that they've learned previously. So that is Blookit, and I'm sure lots of you will be very familiar with. Let me just get sound. That tune will drive you absolutely insane. Okay, lovely. Right, so I think.
Ellie, can I just say as well, the other thing you can do is click on the loudspeaker icon on the Blookit page, and that will also mute the audio as opposed to just closing the page.
Brilliant. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, because that song drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah, no worries. You're welcome.
It really gets stuck in your head. Okay, lovely. So very, very briefly, I'm just going to quickly show you how I've used deck toys over the last few weeks. So I used deck toys a lot in lockdown because the children really, really loved it. But what I really like about deck toys now is that I can have the children on their devices in the classroom, and they can be accessing their particular activities at their level. So here I've created a deck toy with Je découvre le Sénégal. This is something that the Year Sixes are going to be doing at the end of unit, but we've done some revision ones here for various different other things. I'm just going to show you this very quickly, because what I've chosen here is the deck which allows you to have two separate routes. So it's not just one single route. There is actually an opportunity to choose your path. And so when you go into deck toys, you can choose which kind of format you want to go for. And I've chosen one that's got two separate paths so that children can choose which way they want to go. But what I really like about it is not only can you create activities there's activities already in deck toys that you can use, but you can also bring in some of your own activities and embed them into the deck toy I don't know what it's called, interface, I don't know what it's called. Okay, so for example, this one, this is the opinions listening activity. If I click on the blue bit just here, it will allow me to embed an activity of my own into this particular space. So I can go to, learning apps, for example. If I can go back into my learning apps, it's disappeared. There it is. I can go into learning apps, and I can take my opinions activity that I've created for the children, which has now disappeared. Yes, match the likes and dislikes. So this one. So I then can take the where it says embed just here, I can click on this, right click, I can copy that, and then I can go into deck toys and I can embed sight or video. I embed my link just here, and then now my little activity is within Deck Toys so the children can access it. So at the beginning I said these are activities that I might not do within the classroom as a single activity, but I would definitely include them within a Deck Toys activity as a revision, for example. Again, I could do the same here, this time drawing from Word Wall, for example. So if I click here and I go back to Word Wall and I want to use this activity just here, which I have, which I've created and which I looked at earlier. Again, I can embed it. So I find the correct HTML, I copy that, and then I embed it into the Deck Toys, and there it is. It's then embedded there and the children will be able to access it. So it's a really nice way of bringing in revision activities that children have already seen, that they're quite familiar with, and seeing if they can do it again, basically. And the leaderboard, when they do access it through Deck Toys, the leaderboard will be populated again, so you'll be able to see which children have got the concept and which children haven't. I'm just aware of time now, so I think I'm pretty much finished, except just to mention very briefly, and again, this is something where there is a really fantastic webinar already available, I believe, it's with Anna Granger and Jérôme Nog, and it's Canva. Canva is something that I've discovered relatively recently, and it's not a tool that the children will be using necessarily, but it's something that you can use to create some really fantastic resources for the classroom. So I would definitely recommend that webinar if you're interested in finding out more about that. You can go to templates and it will allow you to create anything that you want, essentially. But I find that the education section, for obvious reasons, is really, really good and allows you to create all sorts of things. And doesn't seem to be working. Okay, super. So allows you to create all sorts of different things. So for example, when we did our work on Senegal the other day with the Year Sixes, we created a mind map, which the children, which I added to. So the children gave me told me everything that they found out in their virtual tour of Dakar and in the other elements of the lesson. And then we created a class mind map, basically, which then I printed out and I put into their books. So we had evidence of what they've been doing during the lesson. So they've been using Genially during the lesson, but we actually managed to write down all of the information that they'd learned about Senegal. It's their first lesson learning about Senegal, so they found out quite a lot of information. And it's a really nice way of collating information there. And it's just a really nice visual way. This is another example of something that I did with Year 6. So the children were watching clips about Senegal, and this was a laminated sheet that I made for them so that they could organise their thoughts, particularly for those children who didn't feel confident with just jotting down ideas on a whiteboard. This helped them to organise their thoughts a little bit more clearly, and also gave them some key vocabulary to work from. So Canva is definitely something that I haven't explored lots of, but it's certainly something that that I learned about during lockdown and that I will be using going forward in my lessons. So I think that is pretty much everything. I don't think that I've missed anything out on the way. And there we go, it's 9 o'clock. So I will hand back, I think, to Joe, and perhaps we could have some questions, if there are any questions, about anything that's been mentioned during this, or anything that you want to add at all about what's been mentioned. So Joe, I will hand back to you.
Fantastic, lovely job, brilliant stuff, Ellie. Thank you so much. We have got a few questions. I don't think they'll take that long to do, and then we'll do the photo call for everybody. I know Helen likes a photo call, so that's brilliant. So if it's okay, it won't take that long. So first question, in your opinion, are the word wall activities that you pay for worth the extra expense?
They were for me during lockdown, certainly, because I was using pretty much everything all the time. So I was using an example of something from everywhere during every lesson. So during lockdown, definitely. I wouldn't say so necessarily now that we're back in class because of the way that I'm using them, simply because I'm using them as something on the main board, generally as a starter activity, and again at the end of a unit potentially as a revision activity. And you do get a lot for free as well, although I have to say it's not that much, the subscription, if I remember correctly. I can't remember how much it is, but maybe your MFL budget could run to it somewhere.
Yeah, I put the link to the pricing in the chat. Off the top of my head, I don't think it's that much. I think it's only about £25 or something for the year, I think.
Yeah.
So with the free version of WordWall, you get 18 example activities, of which you can then choose 5. But once you've chosen your 5, you can then make unlimited numbers of activities of those 5 exercise types that you choose. So it's very, very versatile, I think. It's fantastic. And I love the way that you were using it there. It was lovely. Right, next question was, could you explain how you made your Bitmoji video with Photospeak in Learning Apps?
Yes, I can, but it might take a while. So I downloaded the Photospeak app to my phone. I don't know, is there an extension? Because I've tried to download,
No, there isn't. I wish there was. There's nothing that I found really, apart from good old Voki, V-O-K-I, that allows you to do what you can do with the app version on a web page. So photos. Well, I've mentioned the chat. There's Photospeak, Chatterpix Kid, both of which are iOS apps, and there's iFunface, which is the best Android app that allows you to do this. I found, which works on Android and iOS. So iFunface, I as in the letter I, iFunface, Photospeak, and Chatterpix Kid. Yeah, so you download Photospeak, and what do you do?
So I downloaded the Photospeak app, and I also downloaded the Bitmoji app, which is really important because you need to obviously create your Bitmoji. So once I'd created my Bitmoji, I essentially took a photo, or downloaded my Bitmoji, if you like, to my camera. And then I used that within Photospeak, and it's quite difficult to explain, but once you're actually doing it, it's fairly straightforward. So I then uploaded, if you like, my Bitmoji to Photospeak, and from there on, it's just simply a case of talking, pressing play and pressing stop. Then that gives you a recording which you need to or video, if you like, that you need to download to your camera roll, which I did. And then from there, I then uploaded that to my YouTube channel, which I created as part of lockdown for my kids anyway. Then I had to go into Learning Apps, and I'll just very quickly show you in Learning Apps. That should
Fantastic.
Be a little bit.
So there are a few steps, but it's worth it.
There are so many steps, and it is quite tricky because some of it I had to do on my phone, and some of it I then had to do on the computer as such. So if I go into my examples again, sorry, everybody, this has gone in the way, lovely. Okay, so when I go in here, I'll edit it. So if I delete what's already here, so I'll delete this video, and then I go to my YouTube, which will hopefully then have all of my things on demand, hopefully. Let's have a look.
And you can make your video unlisted, can't you? It doesn't have to be public.
Yes, all of my videos are unlisted. So here's my channel as an example. Here are my videos. So now,
I think it's because you need to go into the YouTube studio, which you don't have.
It's taking
because it's unlisted. That's why they're not appearing, I think.
Yeah, there it is.
There we are.
Okay, so for example, this one, there's my Le Citron. Let's use that one as an example. So here it is. It's unlisted. So I've uploaded it. It's unlisted. I can get shareable link. So I've copied that, and I then go back into wherever it is. There it is. Into my Learning app. And where's it gone? Here we go, headline, and I go to video, put in the URL, use video, and then it should upload automatically. There it is. But I have in my blog, I have written a blog about this, and I have included some written instructions about how to do this. So if you are interested, my blog, I'll put the address back up here, My Primary Languages Classroom, and then it's in a blog post on technology during lockdown, and there's a very simple, straightforward written explanation there that's sometimes a little bit easier.
Fantastic. That's lovely. Thank you so much. Rachel in the chat has very kindly said that with WordWall, I'd forgotten to mention this as it's a really good tip for WordWall. If you pay for, say, a month, and then you make lots and lots of different activities, those activities that you make are not removed by WordWall if you then stop paying. So a little trick, not that I'm saying this officially, of course, but a little trick is that you pay for the 1 month, make loads of activities, you then stop paying, and you can still use those activities. They're not deleted once you stop paying. So that's another little tip there from Rachel. Thank you so much, Rachel. That's great. Fantastic. Right. Someone else also asked with the audio in Flippity, how did you add the audio in Flippity?
In Flippity, the audio is what, for the flashcards? Is that the question?
It doesn't actually. I think. Well, I recommended using Vocaroo for the Flippity Manipulatives, and then Marie was saying that you click on the audio option within the flashcard. So there's two ways of doing it.
Well, when I created the flashcards, it came up automatically, but I don't know if I've done something different then. So when I create my flashcards, how do I make it French? Was that the question?
How do you get the French audio?
Got it, right, okay. So if I go back to those particular slides, at the top, just here, there's a thing that says audio, and you just click onto it and you can choose from all of your different audios just here. So I've chosen French there, and then obviously none here because it's images, but you could obviously choose, if you had English translations, you could choose English if you wanted, or have none at all.
That's fantastic. But then with the Flippity Manipulatives, if you wanted to, you could use Vocaroo to record your audio and then paste the link into the Google Sheet, and that will then create your Flippity Manipulatives activity, but with an embedded audio player, which is really nice for asynchronous listening comprehension activities as well. That's another option. In fact, I know some people, such as Eleanor Diaz or Teachery Diaz on Twitter, who uses the sentence builder as a prompt and then has like 5 different audio players on her screen, and then the students then have to then put the chunks into the right order. That's another idea as well. Brilliant. Right, then the last couple are to do with BlueKit. So one question is, what's the difference in your opinion between, say, BlueKit and Kahoot? I know they're all quite similar, aren't they, these sorts of activities, but what would you say is the main difference?
I don't really use Kahoot, so I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this question because I find it a little bit complex, but BlueKit for me was just very, very straightforward and seemed to be the simpler for me personally, but
and it's great the way you can embed Quizlet sets. If you've already got Quizlet sets, that's fantastic as well. Right. Another question in relation to WordWall. Can you embed WordWall activities that are not your own in the way that you showed us? Do you know?
Yeah, I think so, because they're freely available to everybody. Once you've kind of shared them with everyone, then you're sort of saying, I'm happy for anybody to use them however. So they're then available to everybody.
Right. So if they're public, you'll get that share option, and then brilliant. Okay. And then the last question is, again, in your opinion, what do you think are the main differences between Genially and Deck Toys? I know they're quite similar, aren't they? But to you, what are the main differences?
Well, I haven't used, or I'm not using at the moment, Genially in the same way as Deck Toys, because Genially for me is more a way of curating content, if that makes sense. So having all content in one place. So I use it instead of using my slides that I would have used using Active Primary, I now just use Genially, because I find that it has so many more options for creating kind of really interesting content for the children. Visually, it looks so much better. It's crazy when you look at the two side by side. Deck Toys for me, I really use in the way that I've shown, which is for revision activities and for kind of games, like escape games, if you like. I think that possibly Marie is the better person to ask about that, because she knows so much, literally everything about Genially. And because I'm not quite on that journey yet of using it in exactly the same way to create, as I say, escape games and things like that. I don't know if Marie can add anything to that.
Well, Marie very kindly said I did answer in the chat. She's been amazing as always answering the chat. But I was just thinking from the point of view of the recording. It's nice for us to like discuss it and for you to give your answer on the recording, because obviously in the recording people aren't going to see the chat at the same time. So that's brilliant answer. Right, Charlotte has just asked, what fonts do you use to create your props? I love it.
For which, sorry?
To create your props, she's written. I presume that she means on your first slide. Charlotte, can you clarify what you mean? Do you mean that image there on the first slide? Is that what you mean? You could let us know. That'd be lovely.
This is Sue Ellen something. That's the font.
Right. It does look lovely, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah, I think it's nice for the children. It's nice and easy to read. It looks similar to handwriting, I guess. It doesn't follow the school policy of particular fonts, that's for sure. No one's noticed yet, though.
So Charlotte's saying on your blog, do you have a particular font on your blog that you'd like to use?
No, I just use whatever comes up there. I have whatever the font is whatever it is, WordPress generates automatically. That's the one I use. Sorry, there hasn't been any more thought gone into it than that, I'm afraid.
That's lovely, no problem at all. That's lovely. Okay, I think that's everything that we've been asked. Helen's just saying about Kahoot is really good to take pupils through a sequence and check understanding as you go. As a teacher, you see how many people have grasped something. I like Blue-Kit, but I don't find out until later who's understood what. That's a really important point. Brilliant.
And depending on the game that they play in Blue-Kit as well, they could end up looking like they understood much more than they did. So Gold Quest, for example, is about stealing gold off other people and strategy. So you might end up with somebody who was right at the top, especially, your really bright ones will suddenly be knocked to the bottom by somebody else. But I think what's nice about it for me is that it's just an engage. I don't necessarily use it as an assessment tool in that way. I use it as something to bring back the vocabulary and so on, and in a fun way.
And you're right, it engages them, and especially actually when you've got a wide range of ability, the lower ability will engage really well on that.
Yeah.
But when you ask the high ability, which one do you prefer? They'll say, yes, well, because they realise that they don't necessarily get credit for understanding.
Yeah.
So I'm a particular fan of Kahoot, I suppose, at the later stages when you're really trying to, with sixth form, I'm able to go through something and I can really fine tune the choices that they've got, so I can really see if they've understood. It's not so random. But Blue-Kit is great for the kids. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your lovely presentation, Ellie. It's been really, really, really interesting to see how you've been using the tools. I think the point that you made earlier about the fact that we might know about these tools, but not know about your journey or your story or what have you, or the way in which you're incorporating them together has just been fabulous. It's just really fascinating, isn't it, how everyone is using different tools that we've heard about through the Tilt webinars, probably principally, and how you're using them in different combinations, and the little tips and tricks that you're giving along the way, and the fact that people can share in the chat about how they've been using it, asking questions, so everyone's sort of clarifying their use, and everyone is sort of moving forward together. I really feel that really strongly, that during this whole process that, there's been a fantastic collaborative journey for everyone, really. So it's been really lovely to see in that sort of progression that's happened over time. And we recognize people like Marie in the chat very kindly coming along and sharing tips on Genially and so on and so forth. It's just fabulous. So I think the time has come for a photo opportunity. Helen, what do you think?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So if we could ask you to stop sharing the screen, Ellie, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then we can hopefully allow everyone to turn on their mics to give a round of applause.
Thank you, Louise. It's lovely to see people. And the main thing is for you, Ellie, to see you have had an audience.
Oh yes, there's a lot of
them.
Yeah.
You can clap. I've unmuted everybody.
Oh, cool. We've been unmuted.
Oh,
fantastic. Feel free to turn yourselves on.
Thank you.
Okay. Got people from all over the world here. Definitely. I always love it when we see you, Alexandrina, there. As well. So great to see you and everybody else. So I'm about to take a photo. And I'll just see, I think everybody's on my page. Oh, people are on 2 pages. So here goes. First one, 1, 2, 3. There we are. And hopefully this is the last one where I'll have this mane of hair, because I have a been asked to create to do a video for an association. I said, well, can we wait until Sunday, please? And again, here's page 2 now. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And I'm happy. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And thank you so much. Thank you again to, obviously, to you, Ellie. It was lovely hosting you at the Language World. You know how much I enjoyed that.
Yes, that was lovely.
Brilliant. And thanks, of course, we always say thanks right at the end as well to Joe for finding you and
my pleasure.
Introducing you and really helping to create. I've just said to Joe, you know, really, we are so lucky to have you, Joe, because it's, you know, you've got the knowledge, you've got the contact, and you create this lovely sort of atmosphere too. So it's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we just need to work out whose TV is on in the background.
Well, it's quite interesting. I quite like to know.
That's the next game. Whose TV is on in the background?
I'll stop the recording now.
Okay. Thank you.